Welcome all to the Elastic APAC virtual user group. And this is the fourth meeting, I believe, that we were doing as part of this entire program. Yeah, fifth meeting. And we look forward to do more of these. So if you want to join more of these, please join the user group and also share it to other people. This is not centered to any specific location, but more into like anywhere everyone can join. So we want to do more sessions which are like not time zone specific, but more of like educational. So please join these sessions. And yeah, thank you for your participation today. So I'll quickly go through the session today, and like I'll explain you more details as we talk more and more stuff. So today we are going to talk about faster Java applications with Elastic application performance monitoring open source tool. So through which you would be able to do a ton of things. We'll explain how you can do all of that. So what's up in the agenda today? We'll discuss about the stack, how this all things have come, and then like what is APM and why APM and what it can do, and a demo definitely, and we'll also take questions. So what is Elastic Stack, or what does it do, is a regular question that I don't really get to know from. I mean, get to asked by a lot of developers, because the stack is basically popular, but I'll do it for the interest of the people who are joining today. So Elasticsearch is a distributed NoSQL REST-based search engine, and there are a lot of companies which use Elasticsearch for different use cases. You might be searching for jobs, emails, errors, bugs, videos, threats, business analytics use cases, and security use cases. There are a ton of use cases where each of these customers or users for. And another thing to note here, some of them are like community users, wherein like they use the software and like thoroughly, and they integrate with their custom internal systems as well. So, but we basically do three specific things more dominantly, like the search. Elasticsearch by default, it's a search engine, so we offer search as a service, and like you could also build a search engine on top of Elasticsearch. Then we also do observability, which we are going to take a look at today. We also do something called security or protections. In other ways, if you are coming from an infosec or a security background, we also have an endpoint product called Endgame or Elastic Endpoint. And then we also have a threat hunting platform or SIEM platform, which is also free. So there are a bunch of things that we do, and but also like these are the three prominent things that we are like really focused and like deliver more and more solutions on top of it. Now, all three solutions are built on the common stack, the common Elastic stack. Elasticsearch is a distributed search engine. Then you have Kibana, which is a visualizer which sits on top of Elasticsearch. Then you have Beats and Logstash, which are ingest technologies. So all three solutions are powered by the same stack under the line. So the stack I explained, like each of them does a specific functionality and very powerful in whatever they do. So at the same point of time, Elastic Stack can be deployed it's a platform agnostic solution. You could deploy it anywhere. So be it a SaaS, like if you want to use Elasticsearch as a Elasticsearch service, which I really recommend, we have Elasticsearch as a service, which is also called as Elastic Cloud, where all the solutions are directly available. There is also the orchestration layer, wherein Elastic Cloud Enterprise is Elastic Cloud, the same Elastic Cloud version, which could be deployed in your enterprise and your own private data center. Then you also have the Kubernetes distribution. Like we have an Elastic search operator on top of Kubernetes. We call it as Elastic Cloud on Kubernetes because you could deploy, run, and also like orchestrate your Elasticsearch on Kubernetes. So we are there everywhere, and you could use it in all clouds, be it AWS, GCP, Azure. We are there everywhere, and you could use it anywhere, anyway. So what is APM? Now the quick question comes here is like, what is APM and how do we do that? So if I start saying all the nitty-gritties, right? And if I start saying that, okay, in the fields of information technology and systems management, application performance management, it really get difficult, right? Probably that too, especially on a webinar. So you might feel like, okay, this is not what I have come for, right? I want something more interesting. So I'm not going to do this. I'm going to explain your story. I'm going to explain you how literally it affects your lives when you are developing an application. I believe so. Each one of you have different business use cases. So think on a Friday evening when you have deployed your code, or a Saturday morning when you have deployed your code. Everything is gone well. All things are good. You are getting 200 response codes, and all things are good. You and your colleague are like dancing and happily enjoying, and then you suddenly see this. You would see an internal server error. Your colleague or your business user or probably your boss replies that, hey, this is not working, I'm seeing a 500. So you would get, probably when you get this error, and then you immediately start thinking like, till now it is good, how come it is not really going well? And by the time your other colleague returns you with a pizza and like, okay, let's get onto a party mode, then you see everyone starts firefighting, and people are trying to douse the fire, and the systems are at critical state, etc., etc. And then you really try to control all the knobs, press everything that you do, and somehow you fix things. You see this one, right? If the things keep moving, but you will not be able to like kind of find out what is wrong, right? And you will not be able to do what error. You open all of these terminals, right? You take a look at that log file, this log file, whether the speed is good, whether that particular thing is good. You look at the architectural diagram. So there are multiple areas, right? These are the multiple areas where you could literally look at things. So, and then you would feel like, okay, the debugging is completely done, and I am not going to like take a look at this one. At least I can't solve it at this point of time. So you would get into this sort of state, probably, right? At least some of you, and I would probably after a day or like half a day. So APM are also called as tracing. It has different names, but it comes to a common concept called application performance monitoring or management. Is the third pillar of observability. So it's also called as tracing. So it works together with your logs and metrics, and forms you this, but finds you this errors and all these critical things at that point of time. So if you're looking at your logs, you're looking at your metrics of your infrastructure, you would also definitely need to look at what your application is internally saying. So this is where APM comes into play. And this is where APM plays a prominent role in helping you understand. So I'll show you a demo more than talking, like, so that you would also understand where tracing comes and fits into this entire puzzle. So again, talking about the APM in a picturesque manner, like showing some things in detail actually. So suppose if your client is sent to a database or probably your backend server at a specific time, and then it would took like 8 seconds to give you a 200, and you want to know, why did my request take 8 seconds? That's an important thing to know, right? So that is when you want to debug. That's when you want to optimize. Probably your client would have said 5 seconds is the time that this page should take to return the response. So if you want to optimize that, that is one thing. Other way, like suppose if your API is returning 500 in the production and it is intermittent and it is not always returning, but it is returning for some use cases, sometimes, or some particular, crazy and thing. So if you want to debug that, or if you want to understand that as your developer, like, you would again need to definitely look at APM kind of a tool, which would help you that. So APM records multiple things, like I said, there are a bunch of features, but basically, like, it has traces for database queries, HTTP requests, the timing of your request to your application, and it also collects, automatically logs your exceptions and errors, through which you would be able to like kind of collate all of that and also see where the error has occurred. It is easier to debug errors using APM. I would find so, because it simply shows me the error wherever the code where error is originating. You could also find out the performance bottlenecks, increase the productivity of your development team. These are all the additional things that would help. Because of that, these are like downward effects on your team actually. So APM is 100% open source, number one. You could go to github.com/elastic/APM. You would see a page with a bunch of agents with the APM server and a lot of this. You could also contribute to it. We take contributions. We are happy to do it. Please let us know if you're interested. But also, if you are a specific language developer and looking to probably like monitor your specific applications, you could also use one of the APM agent. There are multiple APM agents in different languages. We also have .NET now in GA. We also have Go. We also have different language agents as well. These are showing only some, except PHP. We have most of it. We have everything. And so yeah, each language agent is also like the 100% open source. You could go and contribute to it. The UI is in Kibana though. Like you could simply collect all this data and stream connect it to Kibana, and then therein you could see all of that. So a simple explanation of how this entire APM agents and everything works. So you have in the edge machines that means your servers, application libraries and everything. You have APM agents running. I'll explain what is an agent, and it is not much difficult. Like in general, APM agent is more into like a library for a jar for a Java app, or a package for a Python app, or an NPM package for your Node.js or a JavaScript app. These are libraries which goes into your application, which gets built along with your application. When you deploy into productions, it would pull the data from your application and start sampling the data that your application is generating. This is not your business data. This is your application data, like how your application is working, like performance of your application. Now that application data is being streamed to APM server, wherein it is in like stored into Elasticsearch, and the Elasticsearch is obviously connected to the dashboards of Kibana, and there is a special APM app through which you will be able to like do all of that. So this is how it, on a whole high level diagram, it works actually. And you could deploy it everywhere. You could also sample it some applications. You could do multiple things. Like I said, APM also has a lot of other open source concepts. Say distributed tracing is one another concept that if you have a microservice application wherein you have a specific service, say like e-commerce application where the main page, the search is a service in an e-commerce page, and like you have a catalog service, and you might have a cart service, checkout service, handling service. If there are multiple services and each service uses a different programming language, and you still want to instrument how much time is this particular service is taking, and how me as a developer can reduce this time or can improve, and also like how would I debug certain issues. So that is where APM comes into play and like helps you to do all this stuff. So distributed tracing is something that is really interesting, and like there are multiple open source distributed frameworks, not just Elastic is compliant to all of that. So if you take something like open sensors, there are open tracing, there are multiple tracing frameworks, like even like Agar from Kubernetes world, we ingest Agar traces as well. You could simply connect your Agar to the APM server, and we would ingest and show you this view as well. So that is also a possibility. So you could also mix APM data with other features. So APM is just APM data, or the application data is just another Elasticsearch index which contains the timestamp. So you could just correlate, do all of this pretty easily, and there is no bar. So you could do a ton of things. You could create dashboards, you could run machine learning on top of it. And one of the recent integration that we have done with APM data is like finding out security attacks or threats that are originating from your application. So this is a very cool thing. I'm not going to talk more about that particular part, but you would definitely like, if the documentation is available and you could go and look at it. I would also share you some links. So you could customize dashboards and look at a lot of these integrations, etc., etc. So the starting up with APM is also pretty easy. There is in the Kibana there is a add data guide wherein you could go and click on that and see what is the process. You could install, suppose say if you are having a Django or a Flask application, just pip install Elastic APM. Then in the file, the options.json, or the particular file that you are having, you could open up and like find out, click on a lot of these. There are multiple ways to wrap this agent. In terms of Java, there is a Java agent flag through which you would be able to like put the Java things into the play without even disturbing your application build or something. You could just add as JVM flag. In Go, it is again, there are 2 or 3 ways wherein you could bootstrap into your regular Go language binary, or like you could do different way. So there are multiple ways. The documentation is available. You could also contribute to documentation if it is not right, like if you feel so. So all of this is completely possible. Now Elastic APM has a specific terminology as well. So if you are looking at something like, say, transactions, traces, and spans, I would like to explain a bit about what we think as a transaction, and what is a span, and what are the details that we are thinking. So if you think of an entire request, say, suppose you called get details a method in your application, and then that is the response when it returns, when the API returns, that's a request response cycle. So this entire thing is a transaction, including your database query. So you might get confused when you say transactions are not limited to databases, so don't think of that way. But transaction is something that when your client started talking to your server, and that is when the entire transaction happens. So this could be a big system, it depends on how you instrument it. This could be a very small system as well. Like suppose if you say an e-commerce application, the entire, say, ebay.com could be one big microservice, and like multiple microservices, and like you could monitor entire thing, or you could choose a part of it to monitor everything. So that is another option to look at that. And all these spans are different microservices, wherein probably each implemented in different language or even same language, but shows how much time it took on that entire computation cycle, and like when it has passed over to the next level. So that is another way to look at things. So in distributed tracing more detailedly, so the previous one is not a trace. The previous one is something that is a subset of it. So for example, if you have a service A, say, suppose a Python service which does a specific thing, business problem, and like you have a service B which does another service problem, and like you kind of like share the context between both of these. So that is when you kind of like share this both trace IDs. So each trace might have its own ID which coordinate together and forms this entire service A, service B. The distributed tracing is another important interesting thing that several people look at. So yeah, so if I have to like look at explain you in visually, again, I do believe that explaining things with pictures might help much easier to understand things. Like if you say how much time it took for or like cumulatively it took for the officer to cross all the fences, and that's how we call this transaction. And you have multiple fences in this crossing, each one at a different time, and like the time taken compute everything. But at the same time, you also want to find out when somebody has not been able to cross the particular fence and has was got captured, and then or has fallen, and you want to identify what is that particular transaction. So that is where the APM comes into play and like helps you to do a lot of these things actually. So quick demo, I'll show you something that is in play, and you could also go and look at it. So we have a demo.elastic.co, which is a demo platform. Everyone can go and look at it and see everything in Elastic. So when you could also go and click on the APM part, and that opens up this particular thing. So I'll quickly go through the UI first, and like I'll take you through one specific thing. So I think I will not be able to do some of this because I might not have access because it's a public setting. But you also have like the the tutorials to go through it. If you want running Kibana, you could definitely go and look at it. I think I could go back and show you some of this rather than like. I hope you are following. So if you have any questions, please ask in the Q&A box so that I would reply whenever the session is done. So you see, I have multiple hosts. I have multiple hosts running different application, and I could drill down it to a specific area. I also have agent names wherein I do have Python, Node.js, Ruby, Java, and JBase, like agent-based settings as well. So if you are running a container based thing, this would simply blow up, and like you will have 30 or 40 containers of Python, and like Node.js will be like really hard, more and more. So these are the different services that I have, and this is the environment. So you could also do it like QA environment, production environment, dev environment. You could do all of that. And then you also have like the traces. So if you want to go and look at the different traces that are coming through, and like you also see like how many traces are coming through for this particular API, you would go and look at. You could also like go to the pod if you're running Kubernetes kind of infrastructure, applications in Kubernetes, then you would be able to look at these things as well. So let me quickly go through the production and show you some details here. So if you see, I am looking through the request transaction type, and then I have multiple apps with different sort of like I have multiple KPIs, the in performance indicators here. And I have the heap space, GC. So all of these things also are pretty much covered. You also see that there is a specific spike, like which the request or the transaction took a lot more time. So that is one another thing that I would definitely like to kind of like definitely look at. So I could simply say, okay, show me this guy, and it would drill down and show you further. And then like, okay, then I want to show this guy particularly. So I could further drill down and see what happened at that point of time, and also like look at the request and do all of that. So if I'm more interested to look at why did it take like a lot of average millisecond response, then I would go and like look at this dispatch servlet and see for the same time zone that I filtered down at the other place, I'd be able to see all of this. So this is the traces, transaction, everything that we are seeing. This is swim lane from which like the one specific request, it took like around 16 seconds. I mean, like there are 4 requests like that. I could go and click on that. What are those requests to sample and see what are those APIs that are being called. And it completely took a flat line, if you see, right? And there are 4 errors too. I would love to see what are those errors. So if I'm a developer, I get to know like, oh, this is the code that I've written, and there are errors in the production. I would be really excited to take a look and like, solve them at least for the point. So this way, like you would be able to see, you would also be able to kind of see what is the query that got executed and how much time it has taken. You would also be able to see the HTTP headers, the service related request response details, and the URL from where it has come, browser, client, everything you'll be. This is one way to look at specific thing. I would also show. So we have a specific like app wherein we would also be where we have implemented the microservices. So if you see here a similar sort of services in a very production like environment, wherein you have an ad service, cart service, checkout service, currency service. So each service is doing specific things. Suppose if I go and take a look at what is the average response time, checkout service is taking more amount of time. I would like to see what it is doing. I would go and like quickly look into all of these details. I would also see why this specific service is taking, it's a Go based service, why it is taking a lot of time. So if you see a lot of requests took really 1 millisecond or like really less, but there is a one request. My thing is towards finding out what is that request which took a lot of time, or what is that request which did a lot of stuff. So I could go and look at the errors, like say I could literally go and see like what is this particular stack trace and where it did occur, and what are the metadata that help this error to occur. So all of these are the things that I would definitely go and look at and solve things. So not just that, we do also have a dashboard. So if you are into dashboards and if you want to understand GCs, if you want to understand more metrics, you could also go and do that, because what we think is a correlated platform through which you'll be able to do everything. So here if you go and look at all of these, so you would see the kind of like details and multiple things, wherein you'll see the service performance, number of requests, CPU usage by different so you are overlaying one data over other data, and then finding out what is happening. Suppose if you see, there are some alarms which are like, okay, the email service is down, and at this point of time, and what is the CPU? You see the line that is being drawn over multiple areas. Like see, when I go through this, you will be able to find out what's happening at this point of time. So that is a very interesting thing too. I would definitely go and look at and find out more stuff. So yeah, these are interesting for me as a developer, for me as a person who is coding this entire thing. So it helps me to do a lot of stuff. It helps me to build interesting stuff as well. So yeah, that being said, I will quickly go back. I would take questions as well. So we have some more things to cover, and then like we'll come back, and then we'll see like if I could show something that is more that you are interested. So what APM can do? APM can monitor your application, trace your code, reduce our overall debugging time. What I would say is like APM wouldn't really help you in like directly help you in like doing external threads. You would definitely need to log your put your all your logs into Elasticsearch. You would definitely need to ingest all the metrics. You would definitely need to do all of that. So I would definitely recommend please do that, so that you would have a clear greater picture of what your entire infrastructure is doing. Of course, some of you are only developers probably and like might not know or not might not be given access, but just talk about this and understand how better it is going to be. So our approach to this entire observability is pretty simple. We have a common schema called Elastic Common Schema. It's like a converting every data into a single sort of format. We have all this format and all these agents, beats, log stash, I mean like the APM agents, everyone ships data in that specific format. So for example, when I'm talking about APM data, you're talking about real user monitoring, transaction monitoring that we have seen, distributed tracing we have seen. You have like the uptime. You have that uptime is a service level availability, whether you are finding that a specific IP is up or not, a specific service is up or not. So that is what we are looking at. And then you have metrics and logs data. So all of these are shipped in a common site into a common single pane of glass, and your dev and ops teams can simply work throughout the day. So that is something that is like definitely doable. So how Elastic Stack can help you in different levels? We have different modules all work together. Say beats, say logstash, say APM. Each one of them at a different level helps you to monitor things, helps you to collect data, helps you to figure out stuff with respect to things. So this entire stack, the core of it is completely free. You could go and deploy, run it, and it is easy for you to get started as well. So this is a specific link that I would give. Please, this presentation is already up on internet, and you would be getting access to it. I'll send a link. Otherwise, if you want more resources, my email ID, my Twitter ID, my DMs are open. You could ask questions there as well. So bit.ly/elastic APM is the link. Please go. E and APM are capitals. So please go and look into this particular link. Then also, like if you want to get started quickly and start a trial, so we are offering some sort of a 30-day or like a 3 months trial now, I believe, for Elasticsearch as a service. You can go and take note of this URL. Again, this URL will be sent to you so that you could get started with all of this. But otherwise, these are my coordinates, and Discuss is our technical forum. We also started a Slack group, by the way. So if you want to join the Slack, ela.st/slack Slack. So this is a Slack group invite. Please do that. And then you would be able to like kind of like get joined. So I would quickly take some questions and then followed if you are not having stuff. So I mean, if you still have more questions and details, I would definitely like kind of take my DMs are open, and you could ask me on Twitter as well. Now, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take. And I see one specific question: how is it different from Prometheus, which is used in Kubernetes? So Prometheus is basically a metric store, and Elasticsearch is a data store. Like Elasticsearch can index logs, the full text data, metrics, APM traces, everything. You don't need anything third party. You could also ingest your Prometheus metrics, the data that is stored in Prometheus, also to Elasticsearch. So this is a default integration that Kubernetes also allows. So you could go and quickly look at it. We also launched, recently in the 7.6, we also started ingesting the Agar traces, the tracing platform of Kubernetes. So you could also go and by default do that. So that is how you would simply get started with. So yeah, it is completely, I don't say like it is completely different, but it is not as such like not same, because you also have metrics, you also have a lot of these things. So that way it is done. I would want to take one more question that is there in the JS application is supported. Is JS application is supported like Angular? Yes, JS applications are also supported. We also have a real user monitoring agent through which you will be able to find out the browser based apps instrumentation, say React.js, Angular, all of these apps can also be instrumented. That's the answer. And this presentation is recorded and it will be sent to each one of you. So please see the link that we are going to send. You could do that. There is another question about APM metrics dashboard is not visible in our platform. So I believe that some of these are newly added. If you can raise a question on the discuss.elastic.co, we would definitely help you and guide you towards further why it is not visible, how you can enable it, or whether you need to build some of these, because some of these are built by us, like logs metrics APM, which we overlay data using the existing visualization. You could also do it. It's pretty simple, very simple to do that. And I'm going to publish slides. I'm going to publish the entire presentation, etc. Then there is one more question, like so how I'm very new with this technology, how would I get started? So I would definitely recommend, once you are signed up with this particular thing, I would definitely recommend you to join the mailing list. We also run a community newsletter through which you will be like aware of what's happening into this entire thing, and then you will be getting started with all of that. So one more question, like how is the licensing for APM? So thank you for good question. Like APM is an open source product at the core, but we offer it as a service. So you would definitely need to run somewhere. So you could definitely go and use the same community trial that I have shown, like the previous slide. So you could go and take this URL and start here. And it is based on the RAM that you consume in Elasticsearch, but not the number of traces, number of agents, number of documents. It is not related to any of that, or even number of users using the platform. It is purely not even the data that you ingest. It's purely dependent on the RAM that you consume in Elasticsearch. So you could go and start this trial, and if you are trying to start a trial outside, like probably like from the site, it is around 15 days. This is around like 30 days trial. This is an extended trial that we are offering to the community. Okay. Another question is, could the APM agent catch any error, even the runtime exception? Yes, that is what we are talking about. So all these exceptions that I have shown here are the runtime exceptions, are the exceptions wherein you could kind of like catch it when the application is running in the production, not even in your dev or QA. You could do that as well. But if you have a production environment and you want to like monitor, you don't need to put a debugging point, but you'll still be able to capture all these errors. So yeah, there is one more question saying that can it be integrated with WebSphere application server? So definitely, I think it is not related to any WebSphere or IBM or anything. It is pretty plain simple. It's platform agnostic. If you have a Java app and you're running Java app on a WebSphere server, application server, you could simply wrap this APM Java agent, and then you would start looking at the data, be it WebSphere, be it JBoss, be it WebLogic, any server, be it Tomcat, be it any other server, right? Like I said, you could just ingest data. You could download all the agents from elastic.co/downloads, and you could get started with this particular trial. Yeah, there is one more question at the last. Okay, there are some few more questions. We still have time. You can ask your questions, and I'm happy to answer. So is it based on monitor at the logs file or current or event listener to Java app? Or so actually this is like not monitoring your logs file. It is inside your app, and it collects the data from it, and pulls the data from that. Another question says like where we can download the slides, partner portal, Vitas portal. So we would email you the slides, because you have registered for this like the session. We would email you the slides. It's already there on my website, I believe, like saying conf.aravind.dev. Any more questions before we break off? We have a few more minutes, so that yeah, it's a Maven dependency. You could add it like a Maven dependency, but it's not depending on any application. Yeah. So it is not dependent on any internal application thing. It is just a library. You just need to put it into your application and bundle it. That's it. So that way it is done. So what do you mean that Elastic is inside the app? Yes, that means like the library is going along with the app. Suppose say you have a var, right? A Java var, And then inside your Java bar, you have code, right? Which is using many libraries like Apache Commons and a lot. This is the same. It is no different other than that. It is no different than that. You don't need to do anything with your server. You only need to do it with your code. There is nothing with your server. So when your application goes down, this tracing stops. So it will not bring down your application. It will simply like stop sending the data. So for that is the reason for that we are trying to say ingest logs, ingest metrics, ingest APM traces as well. So the traditional way is like several applications go down, you don't know what's happening. You would have at the end of the and at the end of the request or something happened at the server level, you would see a 500, but what is the error at that point? You will not know because the application doesn't have a tracing mechanism. So now when your application is going down, you know what is the error that it is generating and going down. At the same time, you would also see what the specific service is doing. Say here in this case, if you go and look at this particular thing, so if you see here, my application has gone down multiple times, right? You see, and I'm able to recommend, see that this particular thing is down, and APM traces are also down at this point of time. You see, the checkout service is taking, there are no requests. There is a gap between the requests. So all of this can be simply visualized and simply looked at pretty easily. So I would definitely go and recommend you to take a look at. So that way it is helpful. Some more questions on the Q&A. So if you have a question, please write it in Q&A. Please write it in the Q&A. That way I would be able to answer. So you have a workshop conducted for this. Please give me some details on that. We will send you a link. If you are interested, please sign up for that. And we are doing workshops on this as well. So you would get a chance to like attend the workshop. So we are doing workshops. So please let us know. And we would be happy because it is difficult to collect location and further more details. So we would send you a link. So I would send and like you would be able to like get more details on it. Then so definitely, like, do you need to inject the Java APM agent which is building the Docker image? Actually, your Docker image, before your Docker image, you would build your Java app, right? You would do MVN or Ant. You're building your Java. That is the place where you need to include this binary. So you are not doing anything else. You are just including that particular binary of yours. So if you see, if I go to downloads and look on like the agents, so okay, I am not able to see here, but you would be able to like kind of like get the agents from the Maven Central, J Central. If you are using Java, you could get it from the npm. All of these, you would install that and you would get things done. So that way it is like built in with your app, not on your OS, not on your application server, not third party. It's inside your app. So you don't need, you need Kibana and Elasticsearch, because Elasticsearch stores the data and Kibana shows you. Another question is like, also, do you need any application to follow any tracing guidelines to be able to use APM agents? Our documentation itself helps you to do all of this. So please go and look at the documentation. We have definitely have some guidelines for each of this agent. So the docs are pretty simple and clear in that way, so that you would get started with that. So say if you want to like application performance monitoring agent, APM agents, and say Java agent, and you'll be able to see all of the details. How do you set up the agent? What are the ways to set up agent configuration and overhead and performance tuning? All of this can be done. So yeah. Any more questions? Great. I think that's it from the session, and thanks for joining. And I look forward to see you again in the APJ virtual meeting. Please join the user group. If you have questions or anything, please write to us for meetups at elastic.co or even to me. We would be happy to help you and guide you in your learning journey. Thank you. Thank you for joining.